It's a DACCCAST. It's a DACCCAST. It's a DACCCAST. DACCCAST. Cause I said it's a DACCCAST. It's a DACCCAST. It's a DACCCAST. 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 DACCCAST.
You're listening to DACCCAST, produced by students of Danville Area Community College. And now your hosts, Kia and Keegan.
Yo, 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 it's Kia and Keegan here from the basement of the clock tower.
Here on DACCCAST, we get to know the familiar faces we see all over campus in hopes that students at DACC and members of the community get to know each other a little better. With that being said, we are here today with a professor most of us have probably had in class, Dr. Wade.
If you haven't, you should come to my class.
Dr. Wade, can you introduce yourself and tell us your role here at DACC?
My name's Jonathan, Dr. Jonathon Wade, I guess would be my school title. I teach primarily sociology. I'm a associate faculty member in the Behavioral Sciences, Liberal Art Division.
Gotcha.
Fancy.
It's all about, labels. You guys know how I like labels.
So prior to going 100% remote learning, what did a normal day here look like for you?
Oh, pre-COVID?
Yeah.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-2020 COVID? Well, I mean, ideally, my classrooms are quite lively. I am quite lively. So I truly believe when people are talking and engaging and interacting, we are learning. I teach a social field, and so it's really hard to talk about social behavior if you're not really socializing. And so I tend to bring, current information to the classroom, things that's going on, in everyday life. I tend to focus more on micro things, small interactions that we have as people. I like jokes. I like to have a good time. I like food. So typically it was a lot of just fun having in sociology. So, yeah.
And so, wait, what time do you have to get up to get here?
Okay. Well,
day?
so this is kind of cool. So I live in Lafayette. So we're an hour ahead of you. So if I leave my house at 8:05, I arrive at 8:05. So I love that. It's almost like time travel backwards. And sometimes what's really fun about this is like sometimes my phone won't switch over. And so I'll be like, oh my God, I'm an hour late. And then I'll get here and then my phone will switch over. I'm like, oh, it's 8. Or like it won't switch over on the way back. So the way back is actually the disadvantage. So if I leave at 2, I show up home at 4.
Oh, no.
So it's because of the hour difference. Yeah. But in the morning, it's great because I'm never late.
Yeah.
So if I have a 9 o'clock class, I really don't have to be here till 10.
Yeah.
So I definitely enjoy that. But going home is sometimes not as fun because it's a 2-hour trip that I do in an hour. So I don't drive really fast. So
I could not imagine having an hour commute to my job.
I mean, is it rough?
I talk to myself a lot.
Okay. Okay.
So I tend to engage with everything. And if you've ever been in my class, I like to talk about, the interaction between us and objects. And so, I interact with, so I watch a lot of podcasts, I watch a lot of debates, and I sometimes insert myself into the debate that I'm listening to.
I'm just picturing that.
Yeah, and I'm like yelling at my radio, like, all right, this is where I'm at. I agree with you, Paul. I agree with you. I think I know where you're coming from. Here's where we're at. And so sometimes it gets really weird because I pause the podcast so I can insert my own dialogue. And so it's fun as long as I have something to listen to, coffee to drink. I'm a big music person, so I really like the 2 hours. So, for example, Bruce Springsteen just came out with a new album, and so I got to enjoy that completely.
Whoa.
Uninterrupted.
Yeah.
That is pretty nice.
4 times. So, yeah. So, I enjoy the time. I also have a 5-year-old, so being able to kind of just have a moment to kind of process, at least pre-COVID. My lectures are pretty intense, and so usually by the end of it, I am kind of like, so it's nice to kind of recharge on the way home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. And you said you listen to podcasts, right?
Mostly debates. So I haven't gotten, I downloaded the podcast thing, and I downloaded a bunch of podcasts. I should probably be more clear. I like to watch live debates. So,
okay.
Which I guess are different than podcasts. I tend to gravitate more towards political, religious debates, are what I find most interesting.
Gotcha.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's jump.
Correction, I don't listen to podcasts on the way home. Please do not quote me on that.
Okay, but are you gonna listen to your own podcast?
I don't know. I mean maybe. I don't. I mean the reason is it's like COVID life is strange, and so I've been lecturing on Zoom, and it's very interesting because most people just have like a blank screen with their name. And then there's like my face, and like it's really strange because I'm like lecturing to myself, and I'm seeing myself respond to myself, which is, it's just strange. I'm like, why'd you make that face? Like, and so I don't know that I'll watch myself. I may listen, but I'm also kind of critical of myself. So there's also part of me that worries that I'll just kind of like analyze over and over. So I don't know. I'm sure my wife will listen to it. My daughter last semester when we went completely online in the middle of the semester, I recorded some of my lectures on my back porch because my wife was working at home and Eleanor was there, and so I recorded some lectures to upload, and they ended up on the cloud. Mm-hmm. And so now I caught my daughter a couple of days ago watching a substance abuse lecture. And so I'm like, what are you listening to, kid? And she's like, I'm listening to you, Dad. I'm like, did you record? And I looked at it, and it's like me on the porch, like, all right, so we're going to talk about the classifications of drugs. And this is what, and she's just like, you talk about drugs a lot. And I'm like, why are you watching my lecture? I was proud, but also concerned. Yeah. I was like, because she watched the entire thing. So I was like,
took notes.
It's even engaging to a 5-year-old, I guess. So
there you go.
But yeah, that's my life.
Okay, so we're going to jump into your background. We did a little research.
Yeah, I'm sure you cyber stalked me.
Oh, yeah. We tried our best.
Awesome.
Okay, so you got your bachelor's degree at Indiana State University, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Your master's at Capella University, yep. And your doctorate at Walden University, yes. Right? Can you go through and tell me kind of what your degrees were and your time there?
Yeah. Okay.
It was probably a long time ago, wasn't it?
I can give you the short answer. I can give you the psychosocial answer. My educational journey, I actually started out at Parkland. I graduated from a small school, Catlin High, a.k.a. Footloose. And so I started out, I went to Parkland. I did not fare so well at college the first attempt. Ended up at DACC for my second year. Did really great fall semester. Took a history of rock and roll class. If you have not taken history of rock and roll at DACC, I highly recommend you take this course. And this kind of like changed my entire life. I've always loved music. I've always loved analyzing music. I've always just really been a fan of music. And I took this class and I was like, dude, I should totally just become a journalist and write about music for the Rolling Stone. Like that's what I should do. So like 18, 19-year-old me is like, I'm going to go write for the Rolling Stone. Like that's what I'm gonna do. So I don't like to say I dropped out. I like to say kind of like I fell out of college. So I fell out of college and ended up moving to Terre Haute. Had some family in Terre Haute. Just spent a lot of time just hanging out. I spent most of my early 20s just kind of hanging out. Mm-hmm. Ran out of money, tried to start a magazine, didn't go well. So I was about 22, 23, maybe. I think I was 23, getting close to 24. And I ran out of money, and I started working at a hospital, mostly because I needed health insurance. And steady paycheck to pay rent. And so I got a job at a hospital working third shift, putting in insurance data. And I'd pretty much like kind of written off going to college. Like it just didn't seem like me. It didn't seem like it was something that I had any particular interest in, or that I was quite content with my very easy, fun life. Okay. And so I worked at a regional hospital in Terre Haute for a couple years. I worked third shift, played a lot of solitaire, read a lot of philosophy books. I mean, it was really like the perfect place to hang out. And I was working third shift one night, middle of winter, and we always got a lot of interesting things that came through the ER. And most I can't remember. Just most of them I just kind of passed out of consciousness. And I'm sitting there playing solitaire, just goofing off. And this young kid comes in, probably 13 or 14 years old. I'm holding this newborn. And she says, well, I'm here to basically, like very like bluntly, just says, well, I'm here to turn over my child to you guys. And I was told that I could do that and there would be no questions asked. And so this obviously caught my attention. And I was like, I'm not taking newborns today. Like, I had no idea what you're talking about. And so I called the social worker who was working at the back of the ER. And his name was Brian. I'm still friends with him today. I was like, dude, there's this like girl trying to give me a newborn. And she wants to leave it here and just go away. And he's like, okay, I'll be right up. And I'm like, this is odd. And so I hang up the phone. I'm like, someone that's better than me will be up here in a minute. And so Brian comes up, they fill out some paperwork, get some health information. I'm sitting at my desk, like literally trying to shake off this really odd observation I've had. And I see, Brian takes the baby back to the ER. And he's gone. The baby's gone. The kid leaves, just kind of walks into the darkness. And for some reason, unknowing to me at the moment, it did not go over well. I just really had a lot of questions. I was like, I don't understand why this child is staying and this child is leaving. And what led that child and this child to here, and what my role in this process is.
Fair enough.
So it's kind of like 23-year-old kid just literally having like this crisis of what am I doing with my life? I assumed it was because I drank some bad Folgers coffee. I had a burrito for lunch, and the next morning I was going to sleep it off, and it would just be the end of the story. That did not happen. The next day I came back to work. Brian was working, and I just basically spent the next year and a half hanging out with a social worker in the ER. I spent the next year and a half in a library reading anything I could get my hands on. And finally, Brian was like, you should just go get a degree in this. I'm like, no, I'm just really trying to answer this question. I'm very happy in my life. And he's like, no, I really think you should go and, maybe this could be an occupation for you. And I'm like, they have occupations on, like this has an occupation? He's like, yeah, kind of like me. And I'm like, I don't want to work in an ER. Like, why would I want to work in an ER? Like, I don't even like your pajamas. And so I go to the Human Development Building. Dr. Barrett was there, Dr. B. And I walk in. I got hair to my shoulders. I think I was wearing a punk T-shirt. I had this was you gotta remember this is early 2000, Blink 182, just Goodwill wearing clothing, which is now actually popular again, which is kind of interesting. And I walk in, find the first professor I can find, and I'm like, hey, I want to learn about people. And she says, who are you? I said, I'm John Wade. I'm here, man. Like, what's going on? And she's like, where did you come from? And I'm like, well, it's a long story. And so I think she tried to weed me out at first of the major. And I ended up taking a class, senior level class without any training or previous classes, and just fell in love. Fell in love with just observing and understanding human behavior. Spent the next year and a half finishing my bachelor's at Indiana State. And I ended up getting a degree in child development and family life education. And I was like, all right, well, now I'm just going to go out and conquer the world, because that's what people do, right? Mm-hmm. They go out and just change the world. And so couldn't find a job.
Answers that question.
Yeah, couldn't find a job. The reason was at that time in Indiana, they were switching over some of the system processes and some of the services that I would have worked in. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll just send out my resume and see what happens, and got a call from a company in North Carolina. Moved out to North Carolina, one of probably the ruralest parts of North Carolina. I think the county I lived in had about 12,000 people in it. Working in a juvenile home for kids in North Carolina. Figured that was the end of college. And started working, and with a matter of moments, when I say moments, obviously days, months, I started to notice, like, I really think that I don't understand why we're doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Like, this doesn't even seem like, and I know I don't know anything, but this doesn't seem like it's even effective at all. Like, I have no idea why you're taking this kid from inner city Raleigh-Durham and making them ask you to get a drink of water. Like, I don't understand this concept of behavior modification. Like, and this is dumb. I have now reinforced the fact that what they were doing is now dumb. And so I was like, I want to go to grad school. Signed up at Capella. I was fortunate enough to, at that time, some of the online distant learning was just becoming available, and started that. Decided that after about a couple of courses, I'm like, I just really can't I can't be locked inside with people. And so I came back to Indiana, got a job at a local human resource agency, finished grad school, finished my master's, started doing some counseling, therapy. And I was like, all right, well, that's the end of that. Like, we're done. Like, good. Like, this is the rest of my life. And then I got promoted to a statewide initiative to look at large-scale systems, primarily DCS, and its interaction with families and fathers. And so this was a big grant, I think, out of Washington State. And I applied for the job, and then they actually just rejected me. They were like, no, you don't meet the credentials. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're a good fit. I'm like, okay, cool. So I went back to my life. And then about 3 months later, they called me like, hey, so you've kind of been requested. The people we're working with tend to really like you, and they're wondering if you would be willing to step into this role. And I said, okay, cool. I hadn't quite yet finished my master's degree, and so I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And this was a data collection position primarily, and I started taking in all this data and information, and kind of archiving some of it, and it was really fun. Like, it was cool. I worked with spreadsheets, and I captured demographics, and there was a lot of cool stuff. And then I had to go to this big giant conference, and I showed up to this big giant conference, and probably with a wrinkled shirt and messed up hair, most likely. And I had to present this information to like 600 people. And about halfway through the presentation, I realized I had no idea what I was talking about. They didn't know I didn't have any idea, but I didn't have any idea. And I'm like, I'm just kind of like giving you this, what I have, and you're just eating it up, right? And I'm like, but still nothing on the other side of the equal sign here. Mm-hmm. We still don't really understand what's going on. Thought I ate some bad food, sleep over it, wake up the next morning. I'm like, I can't, why? I'm like, so once again, 26, 27 years old. Actually, I was about 30 at that time, because I didn't graduate with my bachelor's until I was 27. So at that time, I'm kind of having another crisis, all right, what do I do? I have this information. I know what we're doing is not working. So I called Dr. Barrett back. Was a professor of mine at Indiana State. I was like, hey, can I come down and talk to you? You know, she's like, oh, yeah. And I show up and I'm like, man, things are going great. I'm getting promoted. I'm making good money. Like my career is just flourishing. I was like, I have no complaints. Like, I think I worked with that company for 2 years and I think I had 3 promotions. Like, things were really falling in line. And I'm like, but I don't know how to analyze this information. Like, I don't know what to do with it. And she's like, oh, well, just go to graduate school again. I'm like, I've already went to graduate school. She's like, oh, no. She's like, go and get your doctorate. That's where you study research and data.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why didn't I think of that? So I enrolled. Did not think I was going to graduate by any means. It was a struggle. I was very fortunate. I got to go to school with people from all over the world. I got to work on some really cool projects. And when I started, I wasn't teaching at that time. And one of my professors was like, oh, you should really start teaching. It's really good to teach while you're learning. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really a teacher. Like, I never, like, it's not really me. Mm-hmm. She's like, just do it for your CV. It looks really good. Just go do it. I'm like, okay, I'll go do it. That's what I'll do. And so I was living in Illinois at the time, and they had there was like an ad for like a part-time, once a semester, night class in child development. Like that is like, I think it was every spring. I'm like, perfect. Once a year, 3 hours a night. It'll look really good on my resume. And about 6 weeks into teaching, I realized that this is where I should be. Like, this is the problems I was having was it all started in education. When I left college and I entered the real world, the theories were awesome. But when I saw the theories and the practice and the outcomes, I realized that I really should have been better prepared because, the idea is you keep families together and you do whatever you can to keep them together. The reality is in society is sometimes it's extremely difficult. And so I was like, if I'm going to create change, this is where I start. The next generation of people. Like, not in the idea of like indoctrinating them, but the idea of that bringing awareness and inspiring people to change. I'm getting old now, so my energy is obviously okay. I'm not completely empty. But I found that the best intervention I had was at education. And one class grew into two grew into 3, 8 years passed, finally finished my PhD, started doing consulting work, still doing therapy on the side, and a full-time position opened up here, interviewed for it, and was given the greatest opportunity to be here full-time.
I do have one question that was brought up a few times is, okay, do you have issues with bad food giving you like bad experiences? Like, is that a thing that actually happens? Or
no, I think too is like if you eat the wrong food, you have like weird dreams, man.
How many bad burritos have you had in your life?
I've had a few,
and rethought your entire.
That's an easy blame show. I ate cafeteria food. I ate a burrito at a hospital cafeteria at midnight. And so yes, I do think, if you have a weird meal, like you get some strange dreams, man. But the unsettling in my stomach, it was easier to say this is due to something situational. This is not me actually worrying. This is me just feeling weird because I had this really cheap burrito, or whatever. But this is a great movie. Have you ever seen the movie Jerry Maguire? Have you ever seen Jerry Maguire?
No.
We're too young.
Okay, well, you guys should really watch it because basically, I feel like I'm Jerry Maguire, except I'm not a sports agent. And basically, he had a bad piece of pizza and grew a conscience.
Oh, okay.
And
interesting.
Now obviously you don't eat pizza and grow a conscience, but for me, it was an experience created a level of awareness that I was not used to having.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And I blamed it on a burrito. because
I
it was
think
convenient.
I'm gonna start doing that too.
Yeah, just blame it on a burrito.
Okay, and then we also did more stalking on you, and you've told us about most of the jobs you've had, and you brought up a consulting group, and it was listed as Wade Consulting Group. Is that your own?
It is now closed.
Oh, just kidding.
Yeah, when I came on full time, I basically made this my primary.
Okay.
At that time, I was doing some hospital training. I was training some.
So it was like your own.
Yeah,
business?
it was me. It
Okay.
was just easier to incorporate it for tax reasons.
When I saw the LLC, I thought that might be
that
what it
was the whole point. I had started doing. My belief system has always been to help kind of help people along, and so those were places in which I would, I offered training for reduced cost, and then my accountant, I think, was like, dude, like, you're paying all this like self-employment tax. And so I just incorporated it. And I did that for a couple of years. I did some editing services, did some working with graduate students on editing and publication prep, methodology work. And then I also worked with organizations in regards to just trainings. I did a lot of trainings, primarily the hospital, and then I did behavioral consulting.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool. And so all that was, there was stuff I was doing individually that I couldn't do at the company I was working at. And so the safest way to kind of do it, I had a lot of self-pay work where people reached out and hired me to do self-pay work. And you never really want to do things in the professional field, especially psychology, without a nice overarching protection. And so the LLC was basically that.
Gotcha.
And then closed it down.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you talked about wanting to teach to inspire change and make an impact on the next generation.
Yes.
And I have to think that trying to make an impact over a computer screen has been harder with COVID. So speak on that a little bit and the changes you've had to make.
It's been, I am not a fan of technology. I've never been a fan of technology. There's a belief that you can facilitate organic relationships through technology. This is the myth. This is the myth that tech companies sell us. Zoom is just as effective as meeting together, and so on and so forth. So I've really struggled with not being able to be in the same room with the people I'm teaching. A lot of my lecture, a lot of my dialogue, a lot of my conversations are based off of nonverbal responses.
Yeah.
And so if I'm delivering a theory or an idea and you're drifting over here, I'm able to readjust. I'm able to kind of bring us back to the idea or deliver the idea differently, different way. I do not get that in technology. I don't see your face. I can't pick up on the nonverbals, which are the indicators to me of whether or not you're grasping the concept. It is hard to inspire change if people don't understand what they should change or even should look at.
Yeah.
So getting the information is, I think, the most important thing to creating that interest, creating that awareness that then leads people to take on task and obligations outside of the classroom. And so it's all kind of contingent upon this.
Yeah.
We build a relationship, you take that relationship on to someone else and build a relationship, and so on and so forth. And so it's been very difficult for me to kind of figure out how do I connect with you through this. But I think it's going okay. I mean, I try to be as genuine as possible. I've kind of moved more towards a supportive role with students versus just bombarding you with information. I've started using a little bit more technology that can get content to people so that I have more time to do more supportive processes like encourage you or check in on you. And so I do a lot of that. Students text me, students email me, students message me, students call me. So anytime I have an opportunity to actually talk with someone, I encourage that a lot. Call me, we can talk about the material. And so, definitely just trying to get over this hurdle, but also trying to realize technology doesn't tend to go away. It's not like one day we're going to wake up and be like, these iPhones, we're going to leave it on the kitchen table and never use it again. So it's here to stay. Zoom is here to stay. Zoom was actually the only company prepared for the pandemic.
Yeah.
They were the only company that didn't struggle. They're like, we're ready.
We've been waiting.
This is the stock thing that we've been waiting on for years. They had so much business, they gave it away for free.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think that it's going to be here. It's, education has been moving for a long time with technology. As technology develops, education changes. The example I give, like Harvard went online. Harvard went online.
Yeah.
MIT went online. Universities that are the traditional had to adapt.
Yeah.
And once you adapt and you see it works, it's hard to not continue to adapt with technology.
So what you're saying is you think that we're going to see, even after?
I think that we will see. I don't think that we'll see all of it. The saving grace, I think, for me, is you still cannot beat the success rates that occur with a student knowing a faculty member. There is something about relationships that is in every field I've ever worked in, whether it's therapy, whether it's consulting, whether it's teaching. The relationship is what gets people through. Now, do I think that we will see more presence online and through technology? Absolutely. Because it's giving us, one of the things I've learned, I've always struggled with getting students to read. Yeah, I'm sure you guys, neither one of you ever had a problem reading.
No,
Just
never,
sit
ever.
down,
Yep.
can't wait to get to that chapter. And so some of the technology I've started using now actually kind of evaluates whether or not people are reading, whether or not people are comprehending.
Yeah.
And so this is an excellent tool that I never would have used if it wasn't for this situation. That tool is not going to go away.
Yeah.
So that tool is going to give me more opportunity to engage with people. So I do think that we will start to see a lot of different things occurring even after this is over. Now you got to remember, to build a habit, it takes 90 days. To break one, it takes 120. So we've consistently used all this stuff for 9 months. We're going to use it probably for another however long. So we're going to be 2 years into this platform.
Wow, that's...
And if you think about the adjustment it took to get to this platform, what's the adjustment going to look like coming off of it?
Yeah.
So, it's not like we wake up one day and be like, I ate cheeseburgers every day for 2 years, and today I'm going to have a salad. There's going to be things that come with it and things that stay. And there will be things that go away. I think there will be actually a lot of what I think will happen is people will be eager to connect again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think really there will be people will be ready to connect with other people. The other side too is our profession's not ready. And I say my profession, not as a professor, but as a therapist. There's a lot of mental health needs right now. There's a lot of we have people that are really struggling all over in all different age groups. So we have people, some of the elderly population, some of the older population haven't had human contact in a year. So, there's lots of things I think that we will need. This is really advanced therapy for now. We do a lot of therapies being delivered via video, teletherapy, video therapy, where, even though I can't get you into my office to see me, we can still work on things. And so, that saves on gas, driving, that saves on office space, office costs, utilities. Why would an agency not keep a piece of that available? And so, I think too, we're going to see just the next stage and the next evolution of education, therapy, psychology, medicine.
Interesting.
Yeah. I saw my doctor via video in my
I've done
pajamas
that. Yeah.
on my couch. And I'm like, why would I ever wait in line? Like, why would I ever do that? Like, I literally just like clicked the button and they said, we'll send you a link. And I said, okay. And I clicked on the link. I didn't have to go and sit in the waiting room. I didn't have to go wait in that really weird robe.
Yeah.
I just was right there. And so the time saving measure there, I mean, so why would you not? Why would you let go of that? Why would you let go of that? But also too is I think, that was for, basically a yearly checkup. If I was extremely sick, I would want.
Yeah.
And so, so I think we'll see a lot of it stay over. I think we'll see some of it go away, but I also think we'll see a push from people to really connect again, and whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah. I had you for sociology.
And awesome.
You talked a lot about your wife and your daughter Eleanor.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking that your wife was a corporate executive.
She works for a nonprofit, so she's a chief operating officer of a nonprofit in Lafayette. Okay. So, which we actually both started at the same agency, which is how we met. She was actually my boss at one time.
Whoa.
Ooh, yeah.
Whoa.
I think she wanted to fire me a couple times. I'm pretty confident that she wanted to fire me a couple times. I'm a lot to manage. I went to a conference, and I had left that position and took another position here in Illinois. And, I called her one day and said, hey, I was at this conference and the presenter had this information. Would you like to, I could share it with you? And coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into dating. Dating turned into marriage, which then turned into Eleanor. So on and so forth. Yeah. So Eleanor's 5. This was the first year that she's in kindergarten. So this has been a transition.
Yeah.
I was a preschool teacher from March till August. And I had never felt so inadequate in all my life. I can't, Matt, why don't you know the alphabet? She's like, Dad, you gotta be patient. So I was doing finger paintings and, flashcards and trying to keep her on task. And so that has been obviously a change to our family system. I mean, I haven't seen my parents in I don't know how long. So there's a lot of that. But Eleanor and Cassie, they give me a lot of stability. Prior to that, I moved or relocated about every year, 2 years. I went from Illinois to Indiana to North Carolina to Lafayette to Illinois, back to Terre Haute, back to Lafayette, back to Illinois, back to Lafayette. I've been kind of centered in Lafayette for the last, I think, 8 years. Yeah. And there's no plans of leaving. So that's good. So, they give me a lot of balance. So that's nice.
So you enjoy the stability over the unpredictability?
She's the boat and I'm the storm. And so, I'm very much go big or go home. I'm very much about time is fleeting. Mm-hmm. There's only so much time we have to accomplish everything that we need to accomplish. She's much more like pump the brakes.
Yeah.
I'll walk off a cliff if I think I can get to the other side. I can jump it. She's more like, let's build a bridge, honey. Let's just build a bridge. It's like, I don't got time to build a bridge. So I'm quite unpredictable. I'm quite spontaneous. And so she's much more calm, collected. She's a little bit more introverted at times. I'm more extroverted at times. Most times I'm pretty extroverted. So it definitely enjoys stability. Definitely enjoy. I was a father at a later age. Eleanor wasn't born until I was 32. And so it's been very much I completely get to relive my childhood, which is awesome. So it's great. You got summers with her.
Gotcha. So you're a big music fan, I've heard?
Yeah. I used to be. I try to keep up. The problem with music is it moves, changes, adapts, evolves. It takes a lot of energy to stay current in what's going on with music.
Yeah.
And so I'm current till about 2013. So about the time I went into my dissertation. And so, yeah, I'm very much a appreciator of music. So, yeah, I love music.
Okay.
Even new music. So sometimes students introduce me. I think last semester someone introduced me to Machine Gun Kelly.
Oh.
Goodness.
And I was like, okay, I'll give it a listen. And then
Are you a fan?
I don't know how I feel about him yet.
No?
I don't know. I guess he's dating
Megan Fox.
Megan
Fox now. Yeah, the person who destroyed Transformers.
No, she did not.
Yeah, well, I don't know why she was in Transformers. I don't know what her purpose in Transformers was. Like, I don't know why she was there.
Everyone knows her
Actually,
purpose.
I know why she was there.
Exactly.
I know the exact sociological answer to why they always put beautiful people in action movies. Like, I know there's 7 minutes until the world explodes. Let's have one more dance. Or how about you get rid of the bomb and then go get a cafe later? So I know that came up, that she's dating him. And so I've been trying to listen to music. I've been introducing my daughter to new music, which is trying to offset what my wife listens to.
What does your wife listen to?
Like poppy music.
You're not a pop.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not a pop fan.
Ariana Grande's new
Yeah, that's-
album.
No, I like rock. I like folk. I like
Dylan.
Oh,
what I heard.
Bob Dylan's my guy. And so yes, very much more. I like classic rock. I like musicians.
Mm-hmm.
So I like people who play instruments and write songs and tell stories. And so sometimes it's hard for me to listen to music that's not necessarily telling a coherent, followable story that is you can follow. But at the same time, you have to appreciate the creation process. And so, and I get a lot of, obviously Bob Dylan is not everyone's cup of tea. My wife will not listen to Dylan to save my life.
Wow.
She's just not a Dylan fan. She's like, I don't get it. He sounds hoarse. I don't know what he's talking about. And so, the idea behind music is something to someone, even if it's not something to you. And so
That was beautiful.
Oh, I know. Like it's almost
That was
like it's almost just
poetic.
like poetic. That's
Yeah.
me. That's what I'm gonna do after my next life. I'm gonna be a poet. I'm gonna sit by a pond in a boat and just come up with quotes. But so at times, though, I am quite critical of what people listen to. When I step back and say, okay, this appeals to you for whatever reason, and it's not really my place to kind of critique or put judgment on your preference.
Yeah.
Like, you don't like Dylan, I'm okay with that. So, but I am definitely trying to persuade Eleanor
go
more
on
towards
your side.
more. I want her to play over on my side. So I spend a lot of time with her and I play a lot of rock music. She really likes Guns N' Roses. She likes AC/DC. So she likes some of the 70s punk. She told her teacher her favorite musician was Bob Dylan.
Were you proud? That had to have been
That was like the proudest
I
I'd
can
ever been.
feel
I'd be
it.
like, well, Eleanor's named after Dylan. So Eleanor's name is Eleanor Grace Dylan. So I wanted to name her Bob, but Cassie wouldn't have it. This is my daughter, Bob. Bobby Ann. That's probably did Bob Ann or something. I don't know. So yeah, love music. Because that's the other thing. Like music really does tie together. Music and social change have always kind of went hand in hand.
Yeah.
Music and politics have always kind of went hand in hand. And so if you really want to know what people are feeling and thinking, music is the best place to get those answers. So, I listen to music primarily to see, well, where are people at on things? Mm-hmm. So, that's pretty much it.
So she shot right over Baby Shark.
Yeah, I was
straight
going to
into
ask
classical
about that
rock.
Staying
earlier.
in classical rock. Yeah, the first band I introduced her to was The Who when she was like 1. And she didn't know what to do. She was like, this is what it, I'm like, this is The Who. she would have talked. She's like, who? Like, who? It's like the man on third. So I've been slowly exposing her to my particular genres of music for a long time.
Gotcha. So I just have something funny to bring up. A funny question.
All right.
So when it wasn't remote and I was in Mr. Wade's class, he would always walk in. He had a leather, what do you call those things?
Brief? Would it be like a briefcase or like a satchel?
It's like a satchel. Like
Satchel.
A leather
Satchel.
satchel with a bunch of compartments.
I had a leather satchel.
And yeah, I actually liked it a lot.
Okay.
And he would walk in, sit it on his table, and he would look for his clicker for probably about 10 minutes before class every single day. So I'm wondering if you have found a way to efficiently...
No. Up until we went remote. So actually, two funny stories. If you know anything about the clicker actually has a life history. It really has. It's
Oh, you told me this story.
so
remember
I
that.
actually stole that. So I had a clicker, which is for anyone that's out there watching. A clicker is how you move your PowerPoint without having to go to the keyboard. And so when I worked for the hospital, I did a lot of trainings. And so I bought this clicker where I could, move the PowerPoint without. And they stole it and lost it.
Oh.
And so they went and bought a new one in which I stole on my exit out.
It's only fair.
Only fair, yeah, and only fair. And so I tell this story for like the last probably 3 years about the clicker I stole that I always lose and can't find. This semester, I found the clicker that I thought the hospital lost and stole. It was like under my seat. It's been there for like 3 years, but I immediately believed that some other professional stole my clicker. So I called the lady that I used to work with at the hospital. She still works there. She still works there. And I'm like, I think her name's Amanda. I'm like, hey, you remember that clicker I accused you of stealing? And she's like, no. I'm like, just wanted to let you know I found it. So now I have two. So basically, if I can't find the one I first find, I have another one. I think I have one like in the desk, and then I have one in my bag. So that was kind of everything is lost or stolen until I find it. Like mostly stolen until I find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still lose my clicker. Students still be like, all right, it's over there. I lose my coffee mug. I mean,
I do remember that being in class.
yeah. It's like I'm like, where'd my coffee go? And they're like, over there, like the big giant thing. And so, yes, I really rely on you guys to keep me in tune with where my property is at. Yeah.
So this is switching gears, more of a curiosity question. Just trying to wonder, like, a feel on your interests.
Okay.
If you could go back to one time in your life, if you want to make a change, if you just want to relive something, what time would that be?
Oh man, that's a hard man. That's like a.
That is a hard one. He kind
That's
of
like
opened
a hard
that up
question.
to be
You're
like
gonna send me into,
nostalgia
another,
or
like,
regret.
You're gonna send me into like an existential crisis here. Like, all right,
Oh, he
what
ate
would
that
I
food
do?
again.
What would I do over?
Bad coffee.
I was very uncertain in life. Most of there's a certain energy and excitement about being uncertain about what does the future hold, and this can be somewhat enticing. And I don't know exactly how I ended up where I ended up. I don't know all of the nice little reasons and rationales and choices. But I don't know that I would go back and change anything because I would be fearful that I would ended up somewhere else. And I can't imagine being anywhere else. And I don't know if it was the kid that brought the baby into the hospital. I don't know if it was the conversation with Brian. I don't know if it was, me thinking that college wasn't a good decision and taking a job at a hospital. I have no idea in which of those situations put me on the course in which I ended up in and on and am still presently riding. And so it'd be very difficult for me to go back and change even things that were difficult for me to do because I've always believed that life is the best teacher. And as we live and we experience, we learn, and we grow and we develop. And so the idea of turning back the clock, I don't know that I really want to see where this road goes. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping this road goes to somewhere great and positive and wonderful. And at the end, I'm content and happy and okay with what I did. But I don't know that I would redesign whatever journey I'm on. And I don't know that I'd go back and redesign it either.
Yeah.
So even the difficult parts. So.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Wow. Yeah. That was beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's me. Yeah. All about the beauty of life.
And your journey.
Yeah, my coffee. Yeah.
So, and this could trigger another 10-minute answer again, but I just want to ask you.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it for pretty much since you said this, and it was a while ago.
Okay.
But you said that girl coming in with the baby and that whole interaction with Brian, you said that formed a question that you wanted to answer. Mm-hmm. Did you end up answering that question?
Yeah.
You did? Mm-hmm. Have you pretty much explained that answer throughout the whole...
The answer was, we live kind of in a society, in a culture, and we're very much an individualistic culture. And we sometimes struggle with understanding how the choice we make today when helping people or deciding whether or not we invest in people. Mm-hmm. This is really like a banker's, it's like an investment question. And what I found was there was a moment in that interaction, and it took me years to kind of figure this out. There was a brief moment where that child's life changed. That baby's life changed. The course, the direction that it was going changed. But there was a moment with that family, with that teenager, where we could have corrected the wrong. We could have figured out a way for her not to have to do what she had to do. Mm-hmm. And I remember her telling me when she first presented to the counter, saying, I have no other option. I don't know what to do. And like at that point, I had no idea what kind of services we had, what kind of investments we had. But what I found was in that moment, we diverted all of our attention to the baby, and we let the other child walk into the darkness. And so what I kind of learned later on was, how do people pick and choose their investments? Like how do you pick and choose who you try to help? And that to me was very very powerful later on in life, because I still think about, I can still see her face. I can still see her face. Is that, man, if you would have walked in to me now, I think I could have. Mm-hmm. That is probably, if I look back on my epic fails, that's the one I struggle with the most. That interaction, and Brian and I have talked a lot about that. And I was like, why did you let her walk out? Like, why did you let her leave? Like, yeah. You didn't know someone, you didn't have a phone number, and to me it was like, that was like the investment just walked out the door. Like the person, she's going to have another child. She's going to have, this is our time. And if we invest, we don't like to invest preventatively. Like we don't want early investments. Like we want to wait till the train has crashed. Yeah. And then kind of rummage through the pieces like, well, I guess we should have put more money in education. Yeah. So it's like, so me, the answer is we're so short-sighted. And we tend to like to sum up where people are going to end up based on the information we have at hand. And we disqualify and remove all the human qualities that are going to... The person you don't invest in may be the person that you're going to need 10 years from now. Yeah. Like that's that to me is like the question is that I think... I used to have a saying, I don't have it anymore. I used to say it all the time. I was like, I'm getting to that age where I'm like, I'm not under any delusion or that I'm going to save the world and I'm going to reformate the world or change the world. I may influence someone who will. And so for me, it's more of I need as many influencers and people out there that are going to do the work so we can succeed. So the next time a young person like me has an interaction with a young person like that, they think and they act, not just based on the information at hand.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I mean, that's the answer I came to is we're sometimes quite short-sighted.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, so before we leave here, wrap things up, I did have one question to ask you. And maybe this is like the opportunity to like plug DACC or whatever you're feeling. But what attracted you to DACC, but also what keeps you here?
Oh, man. One, I love DACC. Like, I had a positive experience here. Like, I kind of think that everything started at DACC. Like, if I wouldn't have taken that class, I wouldn't have went to Indiana State that had a journalism program. I wouldn't have tried to make a magazine. I wouldn't have failed at that magazine.
Yeah.
And so I have kind of a connection with DACC on a personal level as a one-time student who had a good interaction, positive interaction. I moved around a lot as a kid, so I ended up moving to Catlin, I think the middle of my junior year of high school. And that was the first place that really kind of felt like home. And so there's kind of I've lived in a variety of different locations. I made really good friends. I've made had really good relations in this area. And so I think that keeps me here. But the big thing is my students. I have some of the best students. Like, that I think is, I literally look forward to seeing you again. Like literally, like when I can't come to class, like I actually miss you. I'm like not just like, oh, I get to get out of work today. Like, I mean, there's part of me that's like, so it's like I don't think of my job as a job. Like, I think of what I do for a living. I get paid to do the best thing I could ever do. Like, I mean, it's like, my wife will ask me, because sometimes I get stressed. Mostly I worry about, you guys. How do I get you through? How do I help you? Am I being helpful? Am I being effective? But, at the end of the day, I'm like, man, how did I get so lucky? Like, how did I get so lucky that I get to work here? I have a great boss. I have great administrators. I have great colleagues. I have great students. I think we have a beautiful campus. And so to me, what keeps me here is that I like being a part of this system. I like being in it. I mean, and no system's perfect. Nothing's perfect. But to me, I think we're definitely dedicated to students. I think we're community dedicated. So to me, it's just like, I not only miss my students, I miss my colleagues. I miss seeing my boss. I miss seeing you guys. I tend to go over and interact with the counselors and the advisors, and I bring people donuts and I bring people coffee, and so to me it's just like this. I do think of this kind of as like a really interconnected environment that I couldn't imagine not being at.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now we are going to do the DACC Attack, which is a series of rapid-fire questions with our guest, Dr. Jonathon Wade.
1, 2, 3, 4. DACC Attack, 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 DACC Attack.
I mean, that's it?
Summer or winter?
Winter.
Have a boss, be the boss.
Have a boss.
Movies or TV?
Like, well, you got to be a little more specific. Like, are you mean like Netflix, Amazon Prime,
Movies or TV shows?
Or like 1999 sitcom?
Movies or TV shows?
TV shows.
Oh, sorry, desk. I'm gonna go with TV, man. I'm gonna go with TV just because you get just TV, whatever.
Lafayette or Danville?
I would live here if I could get my wife to come.
Okay. Okay. Sweet or savory?
I like sweets.
Eat in or dine out.
I do like to go out, even more so now.
Because you can't.
Because I can't. I've never been so happy to go to get a cheeseburger and sit inside a building.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Chocolate or vanilla.
Chocolate.
Psychology or sociology?
Sociology.
Wow.
The Beatles or the Rolling Stones.
Rolling Stones.
Wow. You were pretty set on those last two. We really thought that would kind of like
Yeah.
jostle
Well,
you
a lot
a
of the
little
things, I have some personal issues with John Lennon.
Whoa.
There's certain things that Lennon did in his life that I.
So we're going to be back for a part 2 with him on that whole reasoning.
Yeah.
On that note, I wanted to thank you so much for being here, Dr. Wade. We really appreciate you being here, and we had a really fun time.
Yeah. Awesome.
And I just wanted to say that a lot of people think very highly of you here at DACC,
thank
and
you.
so we appreciate you bringing your A game every time you come to class.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. This has been the DACCAST with Kia and Keegan.
Stay classy, Jaguars.